But they have both.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
With him on, this is slowly becoming my favorite day of the year. So I can't tell you how excited I am for everybody involved. But as always the case, an event such as this one takes the effort and support of a number of great people. This includes, but is not limited to, our amazing GHS office staff, highlighted by GHS Administrative Assistant Ms. Amanda Brennan and Ms. Colette Gergens, Hall of Fame committee
University of Wisconsin. And at that time, she was the odds-on favorite to be Player of the Year in the state of Wisconsin. Well, we happened to meet Taylor and Ripon in the sectional finals in 2009. And it was at Waukesha South, and there were people tailgating out in the parking lot. The stands were packed an hour before the game. They had to set up temporary bleachers on the end lines. There were people standing in the aisles between the bleachers. Some people were even standing on chairs behind the people standing in the aisles. It was just an electric atmosphere. And we were all ready for them. I had scouted them personally 4 times, and I noticed Taylor Wirtz never, ever posted anybody up. So our game plan was pretty simple. I was going to throw all my quick guards at her throughout the whole game. We were just going to pester her and make sure she didn't get any easy threes, and that way I could keep Sarah on the help side, ready to help just in case she got by them. Well, it was a great game plan except for one thing. Sarah wasn't happy about it, because Sarah wanted to guard Taylor Wirtz. And I understood that, so we made a deal. I told Sarah that if we got to the 4th quarter and she had 2 or fewer fouls, she could guard Taylor. So we got to the 4th quarter. In fact, early in the 4th quarter, we scored. I think we bumped the lead up from 3 points to 5 points, and Ripon called a timeout, and I'm talking during that timeout, and I could feel eyes staring at me. And finally, at the end of the timeout, I said, "Okay, Sarah, you got it." Well, Ripon inbounded the ball, Taylor Wirtz was bringing it up the court, and I could see just from scouting them, they were gonna run a high ball screen for Taylor Wirtz and try and get her either to the basket or to hit a three. Taylor Wirtz never got past half court. Sarah stole the ball and went in for a layup to bump our lead up to 7. And we never trailed after that. In fact, Sarah was on Taylor Wirtz like Velcro the rest of the game. And needless to say, we won. We then went on to defeat defending champion Monroe at state and won the state championship in 2009. Competitor, that's Sarah Eichler. Some of you are familiar with Pat Riley. And he was a former coach with the Knicks, the Lakers. Now I think he's president, general manager for the Miami Heat. And he wrote a book. And in the book, he talked about two kinds of competitors. The we competitors and the me competitors. And the me competitors go out and compete for individual honors, statistics, awards, and just the glory you get from being you and being great. Unfortunately, those kinds of competitors very often do not have team success. Their teams don't win because they're too busy being me. And then there's the we competitors. Those are the competitors, and we have some of those in the audience today, who go out there and compete to make their teammates better and to help their team achieve success. And that's the kind of competitor Sarah is and was. Some of you probably saw, or maybe heard about, our 2007 state championship team, where we were down 13 points with 3 minutes to go against New London. And Lindsey Charles absolutely drained 2 threes to pull us back within reach, and then with 3 seconds left in the game, Rachel Henke drilled a jump shot to tie the game and send it into overtime. And then Rachel turned around and hit another jump shot right away at the beginning of the overtime, gave us the lead, and we went on to win. What people don't notice was Sarah Eichler set monstrous screens to get Lindsay Wilde open, or Lindsey Charles, sorry. And both of Rachel Henke's baskets were set up by Sarah Eichler's physical screens. She was also the one who was boxing out New London's best rebounders so we could get the ball. And she was the one rotating from the weak side to stop dribble penetration to hold New London scoreless those last 3 minutes. You know, that's what Sarah Eichler was, and that's what Sarah Eichler is. And the cool thing about the we competitors is you would think they don't get as much recognition as the individual competitors, but you're wrong, because the people who really know the game, they understand. And as a result, Sarah was part of the All Southeast Wisconsin area team, the Associated Press All-State team, the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Association All-Star team, the WIAA All-State Tournament team, the WBCA All-Star team, and the Associated Press 2008-2009 Player of the Year. Sorry, Taylor. Sarah and her teammates won 2 North Shore Conference championships, 3 regional championships, 3 sectional championships, and 2 state championships. Now, here's my favorite. For all you stat people, how's this one? In Sarah's 3 Grafton High School seasons and 4 UW Green Bay seasons, her team won an incredible 193 games against only 18 losses. That averages out to 27.6 wins per season against only 2.4 losses. So how do you define competitor? See Sarah Eichler. I'm so proud and I'm so honored to introduce her for induction into the Grafton High School Athletic Hall of Fame. Once a champion, always a champion.
At this time, we call Sarah Eichlin to the podium.
Thanks. It's still weird to call you Bob because it's always been Coach forever. I think you're only still in my phone as Moretti. For a long time. But I think the biggest thing about this honor for me is always looking back at my time as a basketball player and really knowing that it wasn't about me and it was about everybody else. And I think that the most pivotal part of my time at Grafton started before I even got to Grafton. I came to a sectional final game that was hosted here, very similarly to the Rigby Gym. It was packed. 1,500 people, standing room only. I stood in the corner by myself and made myself as small as humanly possible, and they won. And after that game, Bob found me in the crowd and brought me back into the locker room with the team. Someone that he didn't know, the team didn't know. And I walk in and they're dancing and cheering and Lindsay is doing Lindsay things. And never for 1 second did they make me feel unwelcome. I actually joined them in a post-game wall sit because I don't even know why he made them do a wall sit. There was some sort of, it wasn't even a punishment. He was like, okay, it was like a joke that they had. And all of a sudden everyone was in a wall sit and he looked at me and was like, you too. And I was in my jeans and my winter jacket and I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I sat down and from that moment, I felt like it was the place that I should be. For someone who had a really tough childhood and for someone who competed as hard as I did, I made a lot of enemies. And to come into Grafton and have a team and a coach that was so accepting of me and who I was, and they never thought twice about it, was something that I don't take for granted and I appreciate because things could have gone a lot differently if it wasn't that way. But I was a part of a lot of teams who were those we competitors, and we all just wanted to win, and we were all on the same page, and we had so much fun doing it. So when I look back at my time at Grafton, those are the moments that I think of. The funeral after we lost to Homestead, the banana story, the scavenger hunts on State Street, while we're waiting for the state game, anything to keep us competing against each other in fun ways. I don't think you were there for the Band-Aid meeting, Linz. I think that was after you. That was a fun one too. But we just have so many stories and so many memories, most of which were facilitated by Coach Bob. And I think that there couldn't be anything more appropriate and more special to me than getting inducted within the same class as he is, because he is a big reason for my success. And I am so thankful for him and the time that we spent together and the games that we won and even the games we lost. There weren't many, but they were there and we always use them as learning opportunities, and I'm forever grateful to him and for this honor and to be here today in front of all of you. Thank you.
At this time, we would like to present Sarah with this plaque on behalf of Grafton High School, which will also hang in our commons in your honor. Our next Blackhawk to be honored today is Mr. Tom Molaski. Another Blackhawk who made his mark on the basketball court. Tom was also outstanding on the baseball diamond. Beyond being a standout athlete, Tom was lauded by his former coaches for his leadership and ability to handle pressure. Here to introduce Tom is his brother, Mike Molaski.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by congratulating all the other inductees today. I'm probably really biased, but I think you guys are probably the best class, if not the second best class. You got that? No offense, Tom attended Grafton High School from 1981 to 1985, lettering 6 times. He lettered in baseball his junior and senior season. His senior season, they started 18-0 and ended up winning the Braveland Conference. His senior year, he led the league in saves and batted .350. He's also the only player in Braveland Conference history over 6'6" to never have extra base hit. So a lot of bloop singles to right field. Thankfully, he played basketball because his baseball stats a little suspect. So speaking of basketball, he lettered all 4 years, starting 82 consecutive games. His sophomore, junior, and senior seasons, he was first team all-conference. His junior year, he averaged 23 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and was named player of the year. His senior season, he averaged 25 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and was also player of the year. Each of those seasons, he helped lead the team, second place finishes in the Braveland Conference. He was named to the Milwaukee area All Player of the Year for the Milwaukee area his senior year, and All-State First Team UPI and AP. In his final game, he scored 38 points, finishing his career with 1,531 points, unfortunately losing sectional final to Milwaukee Madison. Our family obviously proud of all his athletic achievements. My mom and dad most proud of how he handles himself on and off the court. My dad would always tell me, like, watch him when he plays. He's unselfish, makes the right plays, is always in the right spots. And I would watch him probably for the first minute. And then my buddy Andy and I would go in the cafeteria and play basketball in the garbage cans. Apparently germs weren't a thing in the early 80s. After his high school career, he went and played in Madison, played 4 years, captained twice, helped them reach the NIT, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but they hadn't reached the postseason for over 40 years. He ended his career second all-time in assists, second in all-time games played, and 4th in steals, and still currently sits 8th place in assists. So on behalf of my family, we just want to thank Grafton High School for this opportunity and congratulate Tom on being introduced into the Athletic Hall of Fame.
And at this time, we welcome Tom to the podium.
Seeing that picture makes me, there's 2 tough parts about this process. One was I had to find a picture where my hair didn't look just ridiculous and the short shorts weren't really shown, so I think I did okay. The shorts are kind of hidden. Second is naming names in a presentation like this, right? And I'm going to name some names today because hopefully I don't miss anybody, but there's a lot of people to thank. Kevin, thank you very much, and the Grafton administration for starting this Hall of Fame, for selecting me, so thank you very much for that. The other inductees, that first class was awesome. I heard a lot about Jeff Sewell growing up. When I think of Paul Clemens, Andy Tillman, 2 of my teammates, kind of friends of the family, related, heard stories from them, heard a lot of stories from John Glazy about Jeff Sewell. Best basketball player at Grafton High School. Jeff Stoll. Honored to be the second best male basketball player, boys basketball player, but following Jeff is an honor for me. John Bleasy too, just thinking about him standing by the doors for the people walking in, that big orange sweater, right? John was the only person who got away calling me Tommy constantly. But getting John's blessing was something. What a great man and what a great representative of Grafton High School. Kip scared me out of football. They were so good. I didn't want to miss basketball practice, and they'd be in the playoffs, and they'd be taking over the basketball season. So I had a chance to go out my sophomore year for varsity. Chose not to go out. Probably a big mistake. They kind of won state that year. I missed out on that, but Grafton football is what it was because of Kip Kramer. And what you think about Rachel, Sarah, and Bob, what you did with the girls program was just awesome. Awesome to follow, awesome to watch those games. So much pride for me to watch those teams play. And looking forward to Ken and Rich as well in their presentations today. There's a basketball tie with a lot of us. So looking forward to hearing those stories. I want to thank my family. Mom, stand up. Come on, Mom. As you can see, I did not get my height.
I did.
Mike, my brother Mike, my sisters Connie and Susie's here today and their family, and my nieces and nephews, thank you for coming. Got some aunts and uncles and cousins here as well, thank you very much for coming. My wife Lori, Falls East, 1984. We dominated Falls, so it's okay. My three daughters, Haley, Julia, and Abby. My son-in-law, Zach, thank you for coming today with your busy schedule, so thank you. Just thinking about my outstanding, you said outstanding for baseball. I'm not sure outstanding. Mike's right, I got all my hits to right field, I had a big hitch in my swing. But thinking about my career, or thinking about kind of growing up, right place, right time kind of sticks out to me. I was in the right place at the right time a lot, with a lot of help along the way. I had a hoop on my crib, right? I mean, what are the odds of that? I think my dad was telling me something. He also had he went to Northland College and Padua High School up in Ashland, Wisconsin, so he put the ND on my crib because I was going to go to Notre Dame. But the hoop was good, the ND didn't quite work out, but and my dad was the grade school coach at Holy Redeemer Catholic School in Milwaukee. When he was coaching the 5th grade basketball team, I was in 3rd grade. So if you think about it, that time, I'm the tallest kid in my 3rd grade class. I was the shortest kid on the 5th grade team. And I wasn't really on the team, I didn't think. But I'd go to the practices. And one day, Dad came home and said, you're starting. I'm like, what? He goes, you're starting at point guard for the 5th graders. And I was like, I don't even go to school there. We just went to church. I was like, are you sure you can do that? Like, you can really do this? But what it did is I started out as a point guard, right? Because I was the smallest kid. Chances are, if my dad wasn't my coach, when I hit 5th grade, they'd have stuck me in the post as the tallest kid, and I'd have been a center. I think I'd been okay as a center. I wouldn't have went to Wisconsin as a 6'5" center. So, very fortunate there. Also, I had some good role models growing up. There was a kid from Grafton, a couple years older than me. His name was John Hero. Grew up, I think he was on 5th Avenue. Well, what John Hero did for me is I used to see him shooting hoops down at Limekiln Park by himself. I used to see him dribble. Paul Clemens and I were talking. He used to dribble down to the court. He'd play hoops there by himself, and that looked cool to me. Or socially acceptable to go shoot hoops by yourself. I couldn't take Limekiln, he took it, I took 4th Avenue Park. Also a player named Mark Gum who was right before me. Mark was, when I was in 8th grade, he was a senior, great player, 6'5". I'm guessing he was all conference, went to Carroll College, great role model for me and somebody I looked up to. Then I'm going to talk about my classmates, the class of '85. Very fortunate to get stuck with this group, very competitive, very talented, state championship game for football. We were one game away from basketball to going to state. We had an awesome baseball team. It was just a competitive group where sports was important. And it's developed some great friendships over the years with that group, but I'm proud to be a part of that class with those teammates and friends. I think here's the name part, sorry, Lori, we talked about this, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it. But my senior classmates, when I think about basketball, we had so many guys that gave up a lot so I could chuck it, right? So many guys we had a bunch of guys that could have been double-digit scorers, but gave up a lot for me. But Paul Clemens, Andy Tillman, John Burfire, Steve Seward, Scott Seefeld, Daryl Franker, Steve Silla, Chris Fox, John Salamone, Craig Emperle, I think I did okay, right, Clem? I get it. All right. So some great teammates who gave up a lot for me. And then baseball, we had so much fun playing baseball that senior year and starting 18-0 and winning all those games. But it was some of the same as Paul Clemens, Brian Schick, Daryl Franker, Pat Gannon, Craig Emperle again, John Salamone, Jay Litke, Bruce and Brian Colts. Who am I missing? I think I got it, but point is, I had great friends who were great teammates who also were very talented players. So big thanks to them. My Wisconsin experience, what a great experience, right? Even though, what was it, Sarah, 18 games you lost? I think I lost 17 my freshman year. So if you want to hear about losing, we'll talk afterwards. It wasn't as great. The first couple of years were tough. Came in with 4. I was lucky to get a scholarship. They had 5 scholarships available, 4 signed early. They had 1 scholarship left. As I was told by an assistant coach years later, they had 20 guys for that 1 scholarship, and I was number 18. Needed 17 no's for me to get that. Lucky, right? Lucky, right place, right time. But I had a great experience. We lost about 500 those first couple years, but I played in Vegas. I played in Miami a couple times. I played in Hawaii. Played in Tucson. Played in Finland, Sweden, Denmark. I mean, just that experience was awesome. And then, kind of my senior year, we got pretty good. As Mike said, first tournament in 40 years is the NIT, right? Now if they go to the NIT, it'd be a terrible year. But back then it was pretty exciting. And let me be clear about it. So, averaged 25 points in high school. I'm on the career list for assists at Wisconsin, not because I went to Wisconsin and wanted to pass. I couldn't get my shot up. Those guys were tough. But my senior year, we were good. We beat Illinois, they were top 5. Beat Iowa, Ridge, we beat Michigan. Yeah, they won the national championship this year. Now it was 1-7 against Michigan, so maybe I shouldn't be bragging, but we beat them and they won the national championship year. But not saying we turned the program around, but I definitely think my group kind of got things going in the right direction. Lastly, let me just talk about some of my coaches. Obviously, starting with my dad. I think you have 2 types of parents, right? You have the parents that never let you win until you earn it. And then you have parents that might let you win and might kind of concede some stuff to their kids growing up. I'm not here to talk about which is right or wrong. I just want to be clear that I was in the house where my dad just beat us to death in whatever we were doing. Not as competitive like Sarah, right? We're growing up in that house, somebody that you had to earn it. And our basketball games in the driveway, I told this story at his funeral, but he had beat me for years, and then all of a sudden, I started getting him, and I started beating him. And then it was like a landslide. And I remember one time we were playing, and I was kind of conceding to him a little bit, letting him score and kind of keeping it close. And he took the ball and he threw it at me. And he's like, I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but essentially it was, don't ever. If you're going to beat me 15-0, beat me 15-0. So I did. I said this, but I think what made me most mad, I was like in 7th grade at the time, so I think it was a little earlier than he expected giving in. But there's also a couple of assistant coaches, kind of mentors, and a lot of these guys are going to know the name Scott Murray, right? Oh my gosh, what a shooter he was. And he was an assistant coach with us, Gex, a couple of years, I think, back then. And he was he also introduced me to his cousins up in Sheboygan. I got an Italian with a bunch of guys in Sheboygan, and what a great basketball player he was, and just fun to play against. And a guy named Mark McClendon, who somehow had keys to the gym that got me in the mornings at 6 o'clock to do workouts before I think we were supposed to be doing workouts at 6 o'clock. So those guys. Coach Walker is here today. Couple years of baseball. He said one day on JV. I remember a week on JV basketball. But two things about Mr. Walker. One is nobody knows the rule book like Coach Walker. And two, I don't remember one single baseball game from freshman or sophomore year, but I remember the time hanging out in the dugout. I remember the bus trips. I remember Coach Walker in the banter with us, like talking and joking and laughing. Now, as I look back, I think he was making fun of us, probably more than we knew at the time, but what a great role model he was. Then Coach Gecky, I mean, what can I say, had him for baseball and basketball. Took a chance on a 6'1", was I like a $155? Yeah, the picture, John Palacey's here today. He was skinnier than I was back then, so. But Coach Gecky just did so much for me. One thing he did is he always yelled at Nick Caputa and Andy Tillman, and never me, so I kind of like that coach. But there's a reason why I played a lot when I got to Madison, is that when I got to Madison, all the drills we were doing and all the principles and the core basketball principles, the same thing that I learned from Coach. They're the same drills that we did. So obviously we had some great time. That baseball year was special. That's the only, I'm jealous hearing about championships, because I only have one, and it's a conference championship. And when I see these teams like that be so successful, don't take that for granted. That is a special, and that senior year baseball was pretty special. But once again, sorry if I rambled a little bit. Really appreciate the honor. Kevin, starting this Hall of Fame is a great idea. Honored to be in the second class, so thank you very much.
On behalf of Grafton High School, we want to present Tom with his plaque that will hang in our commons in his honor. Our next inductee this afternoon is class of 1978 graduate, Mr. Rich Stringer. When learning more about Rich during his time at GHS, one adjective kept coming up again and again: tough. A part of a contingent of Hawks to continue to play in Ann Arbor for the University of Michigan, Rich was truly a multi-sport legend in GHS history. Here to introduce Rich is his brother, Jack Stringer.
Good morning, or afternoon, whatever it's getting close to. Can't say enough what a privilege it is for me to be here today to introduce my brother Rich to this recognition given to him. Thank you, Kevin, and all the people that work behind the scenes to put an event like this together. I kid a lot with Rich over the years. I said I live in Marshall, Wisconsin, and I go through some of the small towns like Auburndale, and I see signs, home of Mark Toscher. Go to Roseville, Roselleville, and it's Richie Soyber, or Aleva Strom, and it's Tim Crumright. And they said, what's this? No, I come to Grafton and there's no sign recognizing him. This is a much better deal, much better deal. Have me be able to have the privilege of being able to recognize him. So what I'd like to do a little bit today is just go over some of his accomplishments, and then just kind of from my perspective, give you a little bit of background and a perspective that I think contributed to him to have the recognition, to be included with such a group of distinguished athletes and coaches coming from Grafton. To be in that group of people is it's a privilege, it's an honor for me to be able to be part of his family, you know? I think I contributed a little bit to that. I think I picked on him just a little bit. Maybe helped along the way to get some of that toughness. But here's a list of some of the accomplishments. Member of the 1977 state runner-up champion football team. They lost the championship to a very good, Tom, right? I can't say the name of the team, right? It's too hurtful. So I think it was Winona Grove. Anyhow, he was selected to the 1977 All-Metro team at tight end. He was awarded a full scholarship to the University of Michigan to play football under the legendary coach, Bo Schemblecker. And that was along with fellow Grafton football teammates, Tom Garrity, Dave Brewster, Mike Lennon. It's not often that a high school team has a type of talent that has 4 senior players get scholarships to a single major college program. Quite an honor for that. When Rich left his high school, he was 6'6", 218 pounds. That's what I found on Wikipedia. From my perspective, maybe 190 soaking wet. And part of that perspective comes because back then I could still put him on my shoulders and give him an airplane spin when he would wrestle in the living room at home. And we drove by there this weekend, yesterday afternoon, just to see if it was still scanning, and it is, even after some of those wrestling matches. Let's see. To continue. Given the fact that he had a little bit of weight to gain to be able to play at a major college program, Rich spent the first 2 years trying to put on weight and bulking up. Eventually was able to accomplish that in 1980 and 1981. He was the backup offensive tackle, backing up 2 All-American players at the University of Michigan on those teams. Maybe you'll remember the names Ed Moransky and Bubba Paris. Those were 2 All-American tackles who played for Michigan that ended up in the NFL and played for Super Bowls for Oakland Raiders and the San Francisco 49ers. However, by the senior year in 1982, Rich was now up to his a manageable weight. I think Wikipedia said 285. I think he can test that weight as well. I don't think he was at 285, but we'll listen to Wikipedia. So he earned a starting position on the offensive line at that time and went on to the team went on to have an 8-4 record. They won the Big Ten game that year with an 8-1 record. The team that beat them that year, Wisconsin. I like to rub that in. So being the Big Ten champions, that allowed them to earn a trip to the Rose Bowl, which was quite an exciting time. And if I remember right, there's quite a contingent of Grafton fans that went out to that game and watched Rich and the other 3 members of the Grafton team that played on that Michigan team as well. So following the season, Rich was named the All-Big Ten team as an honorable mention All-American, and he was also invited to play in the East-West Shrine Game. Then following his college years, Rich was drafted in the second round of the 1983 NFL Draft by the Detroit Lions and was the 40th player picked that year. His rookie season, Rich played in all 16 games, started 4 of them, and that was something back in those days. Rookies didn't always start that much. So he had a good rookie season. And he earned a starting position going into the 1984 season at the starting left tackle, but unfortunately he had a knee injury going into his first game. And it took him out of that season and half of the 1985 season. And it obviously was a little bit of a struggle to overcome that, but once he came back onto the field, he started 22 games over the course of the next 2 seasons. blocking the legs for running backs like Billy Sings, who gained 1,040 yards, and also Gene Jones, who had 903 yards in the season. So somebody was blocking the way for him. It was my little brother, Rich. So Rich also had a clean state win against some of the elite pass rushers, like Mark Castano during that time. Mark was denied the opportunity to perform his patented sack dance that he developed back in those days, and Rich denied him the opportunity to do that. Unfortunately, he had another knee injury in 1987 and was never able to get back to his previous level of play, and ended his career in 1989 with Buffalo Bills at a game against Green Bay Packers at Camp Randall Stadium. I was able to watch him play his last NFL game, and at that point he was realistic enough to know that it was time to go on to his next adventure. And from there he held various jobs in Oakland County, prosecuting attorney, while also attending night school to earn his law degree. He is now has his own law practice in Lake Orion, Michigan, which is just north of Detroit. So, a little extra context to family life. We were brought up in a tight-knit and competitive household with plenty of role models to try to live up to, but we were encouraged to pave our own individual pathways. So there's a lot of competition in the Stringer household. All of us kids were sports-minded, but girls' sports back then were not as accessible to them at that point, so our sister set the bar high in academics. She was a tough act to follow, and Rich and I probably struggled to keep up with her, not as much as our older brother Steve. In the 60s and 70s, organized sports were not as developed as they are now, and most of our skill development was learned in the neighborhood, and sometimes in a greater citywide perspective, where we really played a lot of sports in the backyards, on the driveway, in open fields, and in the streets. It was there that we learned to get along and have to interact with older kids, earn our stripes, wait our turn, handle conflict, and in general, just learn how to get along with others across various age groups. And it was this aspect that really made growing up in Grafton for me, and I think I represent the family by saying, for us, it was a great place to grow up and to learn how to play sports. Rich has always been a keen observer. You know, he watched us older kids grow up in the family, and he learned how not to get caught doing some of the things we did. So he's pretty adept at that. He's an approachable, you know, one of the things that I find about my young brother, little brother I still like to call him, he had the desire and commitment to contribute at a high level, but not necessarily lead the pack or be in the limelight. I call that being a grinder and a great teammate. So with that, I'd like to introduce my brother Rich on behalf of my brother Steve and my sister Lynette.
And with that, we welcome Rich Stringer to the podium.
Thanks, big brother. So, Tom, Big John Bleasy used to call me Richie, too. Like, most of the time. There were a few times it was, Stringer, get your butt in my office. But most of the times it was Richie. But I'm truly honored and humbled to be here today. And when Kevin called me, like late January, early February, he called me, and it was a late Friday afternoon. And he let me know that I was nominated to get this honor, and I was truly humbled and honored. But after I got over the initial surprise, we did some talking a little bit, and we were both doing the same thing, similar things that night. we were both planning on going to a high school basketball game. He, of course, was coming up to the Grafton High School game, and I was planning on going to my hometown, Lake Orion, their basketball game. And they were doing kind of an unusual thing that night. They were having the boys and girls varsity play on the same night, so it was kind of exciting. And I have one child and a daughter, and she was a pretty good high school basketball player. She's out now, but I still like to go support the local team. And one of the reasons I moved into the little town I moved into, it reminded me a lot of Grafton. It's about the same distance north of Detroit that Grafton is north of Milwaukee, so it's got a lot of the same qualities of Grafton and everything. So that's one of the reasons I've been there since 1984, and that's one of the reasons I stayed. So, but it's truly an honor. I'm humbled. I have so many people to thank, like Tom was mentioning. And like Jack said, Grafton was such a great place to grow up in. I have to thank my family. I have to thank my old teammates, my coaches, Coach Kip Kramer. I can't thank him enough for everything that he's done over the years and everything. Just with family, I know Jack touched on that, so I won't rehash it, but I couldn't have asked for better siblings. My oldest brother, Steve, he's 8 years older than me, so I idolized him. So when he was in high school, I was just a little kid. I went to all of his games, coming up here to watch him at the old high school, coming up to watch him play basketball and football. And he was fortunate enough to play basketball for Big John Bleasy. Big John was his coach, and he played for Big John, played for Mr. Fowler in football, who was one of Kip's assistants, and I just idolized him. And then my sister Lynette, as Jack touched on, she was the smart one of the family. She was also the brave one of the family. So there's 3 boys and a girl in our family, and she joins the military. And us 3 boys, we were the cowards of the family. She was and she was also the most persistent person I've ever known, and most organized, and it was unbelievable. And she would always help my mom clean the house and stuff, and us 3 lazy boys would lay around the house all day. And I specifically remember Saturday mornings when we'd be watching cartoons and everything, and she'd be cleaning the house, and we'd get mad at her for vacuuming because the vacuum cleaner was too loud. It would make staticky noise on the TV. And we'd have to lift our feet up when she vacuumed. So she was the rock of the family. And then there was Jack. Jack and I were close enough in age where we were at odds when we were younger. We didn't really get along because we were that close in age and the competitiveness and everything. But as we got older, we've become extremely close, and to the point where he was the best man at my wedding. I got married in 1985. Jack was my best man. He's the godfather of my daughter, and of course, he introduced me today. So we've become extremely close over the years. Then Grafton in general, just a great community to grow up in. And then my old teammates. I have to thank Tom Garrity, Mike Lemron, Dave Levenick, Dave Brewster. If it wasn't for those guys, I would have never had the opportunity to play in college football. I was a tall, skinny, weak kid. And maybe I had a little bit of athletic ability, but these guys were tremendous high school football players. A lot of you guys remember, a lot of people here remember how good they were. I mean, Tom Garrity just dominated on the offensive line. I mean, he was pancaking people all over the place. Dave Brewster running over people, running around people. Dave had this perpetual bloody cut above on the bridge of his nose all the time. It never healed. He'd get it early in the football season, it never went away because he constantly was an unbelievable football player. Mike Lemron was a great defensive player, just a great pass rush, dominated on the defense. Then Dave Levenick was a year ahead of us, and he kind of started the whole thing, getting a scholarship to Wisconsin, had a tremendous career at Wisconsin, and then played in the NFL for the Atlanta Falcons. I still remember we were playing the Falcons one year when Dave was there, and I'm sitting in the special teams meeting. One of the special teams coaches was just specifically pointing out Dave Levenick. Look out for this guy, he's the best special teams player on that team. He was like a kamikaze guy. And he unfortunately got hurt early in his career, but if it wasn't for his injury, it was a pretty serious neck injury if I recall, he would have had a long, prosperous career. But if it wasn't for Tom Garrity, Mike Lemron, Dave Levenick, Dave Brewster, Did I say Mike Lemron already? I would have never had the opportunity to go to Michigan because they put us on the radar along with Coach Kip. You know, came from the college ranks, and he knew people in college, and he knew how to get people to look at us. But I wouldn't have been on the radar if it wasn't for those guys. And then even early in our college career, Tom made the traveling squad. And Dave Brewster made the traveling squad freshman year. That was a big deal at Michigan. If you were a freshman, you made the traveling squad. That was a big deal. Sophomore year, Tom was ready to break into the starting lineup. He was ready to start at offensive guard, and then we played Notre Dame, and on special teams, he got his knees taken out from under him, and he had a real serious knee injury. But he was ready to break into the starting lineup. I was still not even close. You know, I was third team at the time. Mike Lemron had some opportunities to make some break-ins into the lineup, and he had injuries that held him back. And I was just lucky that I got my opportunity in the 5th year. And it was an honor. Tom and I opened up that season, our 5th year, as the starting tackles against Wisconsin. We opened up, and that's one thing you had wrong. It was the year before Wisconsin beat us. The year Tom and I were starting tackles, we beat Wisconsin. So yeah, I thank you guys so much. And then my family, my wife, we got married in 1985. She was a trooper. She was a great partner getting through my ups and downs in the NFL, recovering from my knee injuries. She was a great partner getting through things after football, when my football career was over and I had to join the real world. She was great with that. And we both wanted a big family. She's the oldest of 7, I'm the youngest of 4, and we both loved growing up in big families, so we wanted a big family, but it wasn't meant to be, and we tried everything. So we adopted our daughter in 2000. I was 40 years old, and we adopted her, but I wouldn't change her. We had her since she was a baby. I wouldn't change anything for her because she's been a true blessing, and Sarah's a pretty good basketball player too, and she's studying psychology. Sarah and I talked a little bit before this, and so a lot of similarities, but she was a really good high school basketball player, and she often joked with me when she was little that she's like, "Dad, there's only one of me, so I have to be both your son and your daughter." And she lived up to that. She was a little princess at times. She liked to play Barbie dolls and dress up and makeup and everything, but she also loved to play sports. We spent countless hours in the driveway playing basketball, playing every kind of sport. But the only one that she actually played organized basketball was basketball, and she ended up having a really nice high school career, and she had a tremendous shot. So I just so many people to thank and honor, and then just talking about a little bit about last year's honorees, and Coach Kip, again, thanks for everything, and congratulations on being honored last year, and Pat, and watching Scott and Kathy grow up was tremendous. They both grew up to be tremendous young adults, and it's just been truly an honor. And I remember Jeff Sewell growing up, playing for Al McGuire. I know Jim did a great job honoring Jeff last year. Jim Miller, that you all know, he did a great job honoring Jeff last year. I remember stories about the high school, but I might have been too young to actually remember. But I do remember him playing for Al McGuire. And then after his college career was done, he'd come back to town, and he always spent time with us little kids. I mean, whenever there was a Jeff Sewell sighting in Grafton with us young kids, it was always kind of cool. We'd just as soon see Jeff Sewell as Oscar Robertson or Lou Elson, or it was just so cool seeing Jeff around. And Coach Bleasy, Big John, Nancy Garrity Hunt last year, she did a great job talking about Big John and about how he could be loved, respected, and feared all at the same time. And that was so true when you said that last year, and I was that was him, you know. And your mom was a lot like that too, like Marge Bleasy. We all respected her and loved her, but if you were in trouble, look out, you know, and you feared her too. So yeah, Jeff, and great class, and And Rachel Hankey, what a tremendous young lady with the multi-sport accomplishments and swimming, the stories about her swimming and playing basketball that Coach Moretti was talking about. And then Coach Moretti, being the father of a high school basketball player, I know how difficult it is to win games in general, but to win 2 state championships. And it's an honor to be up here with all of you guys. And Tom, your career was tremendous, even though you went to Wisconsin. You had a tremendous career, and I followed you. And Assistant Coach Scott, we were teammates on the basketball team. He's a couple years ahead of me, and great leader, great team leader, great basketball player, great baseball player too. Scott was an all-around great athlete. And I also want to talk about my other teammates, and some of them are here today. I swear to God, having the opportunity to play at the college level and the pro level, these guys, pound for pound, they were just hit as hard and were as competitive as anybody I played at any level. Bob Prohuska's here, Mike Bickman, P. Ratonia, Todd Roy's here somewhere. I don't know. Hopefully I didn't miss any. When you were up and you said, you start naming names, you hope you don't forget somebody, right? And I hope I didn't forget, but all of you guys, I swear to God, you guys, pound for pound, you were just as good and competitive as anybody I played against on the college or pro level. So it was an honor to play with you guys, and you're all part of my success. I really feel I really feel maybe that this is a little bit undeserved, because I think, well, actually when I called Jack and told him that I was being inducted, he's like, congratulations, but what about Tom Garrity and Dave Lemon? Good question. Good question. Why me and not them? And like I said, I owe all of you guys everything, and I'm so humbled and honored. So thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to present Rich with this plaque on behalf of Grafton High School, which will hang in our commons in his honor.
Rich, you still weigh 285?
Our next honoree is former GHS girls basketball coach, Mr. Bob Morunde. Throughout his coaching stint at GHS, Coach Bob made a significant impact on the lives of numerous GHS athletes. A recent email received from a former player stated, "I remember that he wanted us to work hard with every single drill, every single practice, every single weightlifting session, and every single game. We would repeat drills, especially defensive drills, over and over again until we performed that drill perfectly. As much as I found this frustrating when we were in high school, I now realize this was one of life's great lessons." Here to introduce Bob is former GHS athlete and current staff member, Lindsay Charles.
I'm gonna have to give you 1 second here. What is she doing up there with some bagpipes? It's a very good question. But those of you out here that know exactly what I'm doing up here with bagpipes have obviously coached with or played for Bob Morunde. I'm not going to be able to hold you though. I wish I could have played it for you, but I didn't have enough time to learn. These unexpected moments
like the bagpipes, are things that I had become accustomed to playing for Bob for 4 years. So those of you that don't know me, my name is Lindsay Charles. I was Bob's point guard from the years 2004 to 2008. Coach Bob was one of the best coaches that I have ever played for. His dedication to the sport, his ability to encourage the spirit of competition, and his unique and sometimes bizarre motivational tactics are not able to be compared by anybody. Coach Bob, to this day, lives and breathes basketball. He was one of the first coaches in our area to start using the summer months to improve his players' skills. And between using the summers to get us to come in and shoot 1,000 shots, to watching film, to running our basketball camps, I'm not sure when he actually had time to be home with his family. So I appreciate the fact of all the dedication he had put in. When Coach wasn't working with us, he, like I said, was poring over films. He was running Special Olympic basketball camps in our community. He's coached everyone from the 3-year-olds in our community all the way up through the 8th graders, through the high schoolers, and now is coaching at Concordia University as the assistant coach. All of, sorry, I use my notes. His dedication and passion that he had for basketball within our community really drove our program to get better, and eventually led to the girls basketball state championships in 2007 and 2009. Now, some people that know me could say that I have a healthy spirit for competition. That's probably why I loved playing for Bob, because everything we did was a competition. And everything we did was not just a competition, it was created so that you couldn't lose. Like you wouldn't, if you lost, you would get back up and do it again, just like you were saying about the drills. Every hustle play was celebrated, and in fact, we had this horrible drill where we would all be playing and there'd be a loose ball, and we did a hustle play off of it, and it was, you know, you got the ball and you bruised your elbow, bonus points. You drew blood, but got the ball, double bonus points. My favorite thing is I'm also a chronic cheater, and cheating was encouraged with Coach Bob, which I loved. If you did not begin the drill before he finished even saying what it was, you were gonna lose. It didn't matter. You had to take every second. We never waited for him to say go on anything. Every single drill we did, every single game we did had a record that needed to be broken. And then when we broke it, then there was a new record that we had to break, and we would do it all over again. So let me ask you this. What do tennis balls, pool noodles, and magic tricks have in common? The answer? Most of Bob Morundi's basketball practices and games. This is what I'm talking about when I say that Coach Bob was a master of motivation. Sometimes he'd walk into the gym and he would be out there with a kazoo, playing it. Sometimes the bagpipes, right? Sometimes there was a trumpet for the funeral of our past basketball season with all the lights on, right? And just a casket sitting out in the middle of the court. Okay. I can't tell you how many times we waited in the locker room before a game, excited to see what he would come and do. And sure enough, here come Coach Bob in his iconic purple velvet suit, doing magic tricks, or spinning stories about One-Eye Eddie, or Three-Fingered Pete, who won the bowling competition against all odds. He had a story for everything. We had Saturday morning practices where he'd bring us donuts. Those are my favorite. We shot for shorts at halftime, or at half court, and he'd bring in all the cool shorts that we got to pick from. I truly have so many good memories from my years playing with Coach. Coach Bob's dedication His spirit for competition and his ability to motivate his players led him to a long list of accomplishments over his 45 years of coaching. He has served as at three different high schools as their head basketball coach, 25 of those here at Grafton High School. In those years, he had over 400 wins, 7 conference championships, 12 regional championships, 6 sectional championships, and 5 state tournament appearances in 1991, 1994, 2007, 2008, and 2009. 1 WIAA state runner-up and 2 WIAA state championships. Those led to his next set of accomplishments, which was the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches All-Star Game head coach in 2009, the Associated Press High School Girls Basketball Coach of the Year. In 2007, he was named the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel's High School Basketball Coach of the Year, and he was inducted into the Wisconsin Coaches Hall of Fame in 2019. I'm honored to be a part of adding one more accomplishment to his list, Grafton High School Hall of Fame. Congrats, Coach.
And at this time, we welcome Coach Bob Morande to the podium.
Maybe I should just let Lindsay go on and on. And she can, by the way. Coaching Lindsay for 4 years was an absolute joy because she had one speed and it was like 200 miles an hour. And I remember when she was a freshman, she'd go flying by us and one of my assistants would go, "Where's she going, Coach? What's she gonna do?" I'd say, "I don't know, but it's gonna be fun." And it usually was. And yes, she was a competitor. Blood, bruises, you name it. I can remember one time we were in contention for the conference championship and we were playing down at Homestead. And we really needed to win that game to get the conference championship. And the night before, Lindsay stepped on somebody's foot and sprained her ankle. And the ankle looked like a huge grapefruit that had been kicked around for 3 hours by the soccer team. It looked horrible. She could hardly walk. She was a mess. I made plans that Lindsay wasn't going to play, and somehow she convinced Susie Durst, our manager, to come in early the next day and let her play. And Susie put her through all these horrible drills, jumping, balancing, going through ladders, jumping over cones, just trying to get her to fail so she wouldn't be able to play. But Lindsay didn't fail. So they ended up taping her up. Probably took about 4 rolls of tape to cover that thing. And we went down to Homestead and she had 13 points in the first half. And for all intents and purposes, the game was over and the conference championship was ours. She was amazing to coach, she really was. Moving on.
Hannah Eichler, you're supposed to be sitting in the first row here. We have standards. We have standards here. People are supposed to be in the right spot. Come on.
After the ceremony, we'd like the entire Eichler group to report to the gym. You'll be running lines. By the way, Richie, Tommy, Kenny, this is Big John's whistle. Big John's whistle. And by the way, I was Bobby. In fact, one of my favorite stories, I was a freshman coach for quite a few years. And being a freshman coach, you never got the cream of the crop. And I had one year where we did not win a game. We were really bad. We got to the end of the season and Big John calls me in the office and he goes, Well, Bobby, I got some good news, and I got some bad news. And the good news is, you're doing a great job. We're going to move you up, and you'll be coaching the JV. Bad news is, you got that same damn group you had last year. John Louis. I want to thank Kevin Moore, the Grafton High School administration, the Hall of Fame committee, and especially Lori Marine, who nominated me. Lori played for me, and it's just a great honor to have a former player nominate you for this. It means a lot. And Lori couldn't be here today because she's working. Luckily, her teammate, Katie Bain, is here. Katie was on the same conference championship team and same state qualifying team, and maybe one of the shortest teams to ever compete in the state tournament. But what we lacked in height, we made up for with a whole lot of basketball IQ, and we played phenomenal defense. We really did. That was quite a group. So thanks to Lori. My most important thank you goes to my family, especially my wife. There's no way, when we met in 8th grade, that she ever envisioned 45 years of basketball. Just no way. I can't tell you how many times she's had to say, well, we can't go there, or we can't do this, because Bob's got basketball. Or how many times she had to answer the phone and say, well, Bob's not here right now, he's in the gym. And she's awesome, and I love her very much. Thank you. Also want to thank late John Bleasy and Len Petroviak, who hired me to be a freshman basketball coach. I was actually hired to be the boys coach, but somebody with more seniority bumped me, and I ended up being the girls coach, which was quite an experience. I quickly found out that the top 9 girls basketball freshman players were all moved up to the freshman or to the varsity in the JV, which left me with a team that had no one taller than 5'6", and half the team was playing basketball for the first time. Our first away game was at Heartland Arrowhead. And those of you familiar with Heartland Arrowhead know they have quite a sports program. And back then, Pete Von Almen, who was the head coach, had his team ranked in the top 10 in the nation every year. They were very good. So we had a long bus ride down to Heartland Arrowhead, and I'm, a little bit nervous, first away game. And of course, back then, you had to take everything with you. You had to bring your own basketballs. So we had 3 bags full of basketballs. We also had 3 huge, heavy medical kits, because there were no trainers. And everything else had to be loaded. In fact, speaking of trainers, I became the trainer. I was sent, being low man on the totem pole, I was sent to Arnie Garber's 6-week training course. Arnie Garber was the head trainer for the Milwaukee Bucks. And for 6 weeks, we taped every joint, every muscle, you name it. I came home covered in tape all the time. But I learned a lot, and when we got to Heartland Arrowhead, I had to tape everybody. So when I finally got done taping everybody, I went and grabbed the program, and the first thing I noticed was Heartland Arrowhead had 6 girls on their freshman team that were 6 feet tall or taller. Then a few 5'9" thrown in there, and we were going to have a big matchup problem. I knew that right away. And then, of course, warm-up started, and I look over, and there's Heartland Arrowhead throwing these laser-like precision passes, right and left-handed layups, reverse layups. And I glance back at my group, and the balls are bouncing off their heads, and they're crawling around under the bleachers to try and pick them up. It was going to be a long night. I also noticed my starting center wasn't out there. So I went out and I said, hey, where's Lisa? Lisa's in the bathroom, coach. Okay, all right. So I went back, filled out the lineup, did everything else to get ready for the game. Once again, started watching warm-ups, but now Heartland Arrowhead's just drilling jump shots one after another, just barely moving the net. And of course, there's my group occasionally hitting the backboard or rim, and still no Lisa. So I went back out there. I said, is Lisa having a problem or something? What's up? Well, coach, her shorts didn't fit, so she got mad and locked herself in the bathroom stall. Nowhere in any one of John Wooden's books or any of my clinic notes did it cover what to do when your starting center locks herself in a bathroom stall. So I grabbed the whole group and I said, you know what? We've got 7 minutes left in warm-ups. You're going to go in the bathroom, and I don't care how you do it, but you're going to switch shorts and make sure everybody has fitting shorts, and you're going to get back out here to start the game. Now, for those of you who teach or have experience with girls, know that sending a bunch of girls in the bathroom all together is a great risk. But luckily, with 20 seconds left in warm-ups, my whole team showed up. And then we proceeded to get annihilated by our winner. Welcome to girls basketball, Coach Bob. Lindsay mentioned I started lots of summer things. I started my first summer camps and clinics right after that. We ran them for, 25 years, I think. We got those things. Back then, when you were an assistant, you had to earn your way to become a head coach. I was an assistant coach for 13 years. Nowadays, if you coach YBA basketball for a couple months, you're probably eligible to be a head coach somewhere, because the turnover is unbelievable. I think this year there'll probably be 150 head coaching jobs open in the state. Back then, boy, you couldn't get a job. So for 13 years, I was an assistant. And what a great training ground for me. Yes, I taped ankles. I was also the chief scout. And back then, you didn't have the video cameras. Actually, the school had one, but you couldn't take it out of the building. So I took my clipboards and stacks of paper, and I scouted and scouted. But I got to recognize the defenses and out-of-bounds plays just like that. It was really helpful when I became a head coach. And speaking about head coaches, I'd really like to thank the head coaches that I was an assistant under. Al Packard, Bart Walsh, and Dave Walker. In fact, it was Dave Walker who hired me to be a head coach, which was very exciting. And my first staff, they were an awesome staff. Dennis Getty, who had been the boys' head coach, was an assistant for me. Kenny Besh, who later on, I think he became a head coach somewhere in Missouri. And then Ken Nelson. It was quite a staff, and we had a lot of success. I think in the 3 or 4 years we were together, we won 2 conference championships, and we were at state 2 times. So I really appreciate it. Thanks, you guys. Over the years, I've had many assistants, and I'm not going to go through and name them all, because I think it would take too long and I'd probably forget somebody. But I did have the opportunity to have 4 of my players join me as assistants. I had Kate Grismacher, Casey Schrader, Mary Blaskowski, and Ashley Fannerstill. And it really meant a lot to have former players come aboard. And like Lindsay, they knew all the ins and outs of me and all my moods and where I was going and everything. And it was fun to watch them because we'd be running a drill and all of a sudden they'd go over to one of the girls and they go, "You might want to do it right this time, because if you don't, he's probably going to make you run." And I knew it was helpful for the girls because those years they didn't run a whole lot. But, many more assistants. When I came back to Grafton from Slinger, Stu Hannum and Kirsten Webben were a great help to help me rebuild the program. And we started our youth programs for girls and boys, and 2 guys, Mark Bellinger and Joe Hildebrand, were just hugely instrumental in helping out with that. And I know the youth programs are still strong today. So hopefully They were a big help with that. We had Big Joe Crawl, who wore many hats for the boys program, usually extra large. But, if you know Big Joe. But Big Joe always had the great ability to put things in perspective. And coming back after a loss, he'd put it in perspective, or if you're feeling too good about a win, he also put that in perspective. And one other person I'd really like to thank, I'd especially like to thank Scott Parsons. He was a really important part of our success, and it was amazing to work with him all those years. Great guy, great friend, and I appreciate that. So thanks, Scott, up there in Tomahawk. I'm sure you're nice and warm where you are. We got that. And then the guys who were with me the longest. You know, individually, these guys are all great coaches. And I was lucky enough to have all of them working with me. Pete Ratonia, who was the last to join our group. Mike Bickman, Steve Nauta, Coach Bird, my brother, Scott Morandi. They were an incredibly huge part of our success, not only on the court, but also with what we did off the court. We had such a great time. We really did. You know, and the players saw us having a lot of fun, and that created a great positive atmosphere with the team. You know, Lindsay mentioned competing. Every time we were in vans, we were competing. Who had the best music? Who got to the place first? You know, I remember once, I think Lindsay was in that van. Coach Bird had the Chinese fire drill in Madison. Lindsay and everybody else were running around the van. They got bonus points for that. Unfortunately, they lost their bonus points because they got lost going to the restaurant after that. But that's the way it goes. They're all GHS grads, by the way. Grafton High School. Well, at least I think. We were never able to locate Coach Bick's official transcripts. So, you know, that's the way it goes. You know, finally, Kenny and Sarah and Rich and Tom, they're all here because of what they accomplished and for their performances. I'm here because of what my players accomplished and how my players performed. And I owe this honor and a whole lot of other things to all the players who ever played for me over the years. They're really special. And I remember all of them. We did have standards though, just like I was trying to get across to Hannah before. We had championship standards. Now you can't control everything that goes into a championship. There are too many variables, and there are too many things you can't control. But there's 4 things you can't control. You can have a championship attitude. Each and every day you come into practice, my players came in and they signed up on the clipboard when they were ready to practice. And there was a quote of the day there that always pertained to where we were or where we were going. And they had to memorize that. Although most of them just wrote it on their arm or their leg or some other place. I'm sure the parents were wondering where they got the tattoos. But you can bring your enthusiasm and your energy every single day you come. You also have control over how hard you work. You can work like a champion. It takes no talent to work hard, but in the end, there's a great satisfaction of having to work hard. The third thing, you can compete like a champion. If you fall, you get up. If you fail, you try again. If there's a loose ball, a 50-50 ball, you better get it. In fact, the whole team better be down there on the floor. You go get it, you compete. You compete in everything you do. And finally, you can be a championship teammate. You can make your teammates better. You can sacrifice for your team. You can pick your teammates up. Because in the end, you'll forget scores, you'll forget statistics, you forget all those little things, but you never forget your teammates. Now, the hard part. Who holds everybody accountable for those standards? Well, initially it's the coach. And Coach Kramer can vouch for this. It takes a tremendous amount of energy each and every day to hold everybody accountable. And you can't just hammer on them. You got to find creative ways to keep everybody accountable. But the cool thing is, after a while, leaders step forward. And the leaders take care of those little things. And pretty soon the team starts to take great pride in who they are and what they can do. And then the greatest thing happens. The absolute greatest thing. Individuals start to hold themselves accountable. And long after the basketballs are put away and the uniforms are hung up, they take those standards with them. It becomes part of who they are. And that's why each and every day, I'm so blessed and I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to coach championship teachers, championship doctors, championship nurses, championship first responders, championship lawyers, championship military personnel, championship business leaders, championship parents. I go on, but you know, as a coach, it just doesn't get any better than that. Once a champion, always a champion. Thank you very much.
At this time, we'd like to present Coach Bob with his plaque on behalf of Grafton High School, which will also hang in our commons in your honor. Our final inductee today is class of 1967 graduate, the late Ken Peterson. Another multi-sport standout, Ken will most be remembered in track and field. As a member of the Black Hawk program, Ken set a state long jump division record of 23 feet 1 3/4 inches at the 1966 state meet, a mark that stood for over 40 years. He went on to UW-Whitewater, ending his career as an inductee into the Warhawk Hall of Fame. Here to speak for the Peterson family is Ken's brother, Ron Peterson.
Stole some of my thunder. Good morning to everyone who is attending, and congratulations to the previous 4 inductees into the Athletic Hall of Fame. My name, again, is Ron Peterson, and along with my brother Dennis, who is here today, I'm here to speak about my brother Ken. My wife and I were honored to nominate my brother for induction into the Grafton High School Athletic Hall of Fame. The 1960s were a different time, a lot different than today. There were less than 3,000 people living in Grafton, and it seemed like everyone knew everyone. We didn't have cell phones, computers, iPads, tablets, whatever they have today. How did we survive? We had landlines, and our phone numbers are only 4 digits. If you don't know what a landline is, ask your grandparents. Kids played outside with their friends and made up their games every day. We also built forts in the woods and thought about living in them all the time. We had old-fashioned stop signs, no red lights to have to worry about. Our high school sporting events drew large crowds because of the amazing community spirit and support from the community for all of the events at the high school. From middle school on, my brothers and I excelled in sports, especially track and field. All three of us held school records during this time. In 1966, Ken did set a state record in the long jump that lasted over 3 decades. He was also a wingback and a defensive back on the football team, earning him MVP honors. He was part of the 1965 undefeated football season in the Scenic Moraine Conference, which no longer exists. So that's why it's the only undefeated team. This is when we were the Grafton Blackhawks. And as we say now, once a Blackhawk, always a Blackhawk. After high school, Ken attended University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, where he continued his commitment and dedication to excel in both sports and academics. After college, he continued his passion for excellence in everything he did, which included getting married, having a family, and becoming an ordained minister. He was inducted into the Whitewater Hall of Fame in 1997. Sadly, Ken died while serving as a missionary in Africa. Ken's honor lives on in his family, son Stephen, and his wife Diana, daughter Joy, grandchildren, and his wife Anna. At this time, I would like to introduce Ken's son Stephen to say a few words. Thank you.
Hello, and good afternoon. It is an honor to be here to accept this award on behalf of my dad. Thank you, Ron, for those kind words, and for Grafton High School, for Kevin and the Hall of Fame Committee for inducting me to the Hall of Fame. And also, congratulations to all the other inductees here today. I want to start by saying thank you to all the many people that made this possible. There are more people than I can name, so I'm not actually going to do it. And also, I did not attend Grafton High School, so I'm not familiar. I wasn't here in the 60s, so I'm not familiar with all of the names, so I couldn't do it justice. I just spent a lot of time reading newspaper articles and clippings from the 60s, and so I've seen a lot of the names, but not committed to their memory. But of course, there are groups of people that I must thank. So first of all, coaches. Obviously, the two main coaches are Coach Belisi, who's named a lot in these ceremonies, and Coach Schultz, who was the football coach at the time. All of his teammates on the football, the basketball, and the track and field teams. I think, as was mentioned many times today, individuals don't win team sports, right? Teams win team sports. And individuals benefit from having good teammates. So I think the teammates are very important. Like most small schools, at the time it was smaller than it is today, the same names crop up, right, as I read about the basketball achievements, or the football achievements, or the track and field achievements. It's the same people, right, that are running and having success in these teams. Any teammates that are here today, please, I would love to meet you. Our family would love to meet you and just chat about those days. I would love to know more about my dad during his time here at Grafton. Excuse me. Family. So, like Malcolm Ron mentioned, family is very important. So both Ron and Dennis, his two brothers, they were very close in age. They were each 1 year apart. And so the 60s were dominated by the Peterson boys here in Grafton, particularly athletics. So them for being here today and their families for being here today, and even the extended family. Right? The extended family is very close. I have very fond memories of coming to Grafton for family Christmases, family holidays, and there was a large family that live here in Grafton. And then lastly, just think anyone else who studied, taught, encouraged, cared for my father during those years. Again, I've been very impressed with the tour of the school here today and just the community that is formed here in Grafton. It's hard to measure the impact you have on those around you. We impact people every day, and your impact, if you impacted or you had a time with my dad, has changed my life indirectly, and I thank you for that. So a little bit about me. So my name is Steve. I'm the eldest son of Ken. He had 3 children. So it was myself, my brother Nathan, and my sister Joy, who's here. My mom Anna is here with her husband Jay. I'm here with 3 of my kids. All right, so Aaron and Seth and Noma are here. Unfortunately, my 4th child, my wife, could not be here. They are back home for reasons too complicated to mention at the moment, but they're watching online, so hi honey, I'm just kidding. And my sister and her daughter Annalie are here, so thank you guys for being here. Currently, I reside in Cape Town, South Africa. Kevin tells me I've won the award for traveling the longest to get here today. We flew in yesterday afternoon, and we were all a little jet lagged. All right, so for me, it's about bedtime. All right. It took about 22 hours to get here, and we traveled across seven time zones. But we're very grateful to be here to honor my dad and his accomplishments. Excuse me. My goal is to give you a glimpse into his life. Again, like I said, I don't have any personal experience with his time in high school. Everything that I have has been gleaned from stories, through family, through friends, through reading the newspaper articles, and certainly his character from my own personal experiences. I think the athletic accomplishment has been well documented here in advance. I was up about 3 a.m. this morning, poring over them again, thanks to jet lag. I had nothing else to do, so let's read these clips again. And some things that stuck out to me that I thought were interesting. Things that maybe didn't necessarily make the headlines. So he won. He was a 2-time champion in the long jump. Went almost undefeated for those 2 years. Already lost once in the long jump in those 2 years. But something that came up in a conversation just now is that he specialized in long jump because his brothers dominated everything else. All right, so that was the one event that he could find his niche. All right, not the sprints or the relays or the shot put or the whatever else his older brothers were. Oops, sorry, I just hit a button. There we go. That his brothers were doing. All right, so I think he focused on long jump and he did it with excellence. He was part of the 5th straight, scenic moraine track conference title. Again, I think largely thanks to his brothers, who dominated in the years leading up to that. He was a very versatile athlete, so in his senior season, once his brothers were gone, he was running the 100, the 400, the relays. He was doing the long jump. He was doing the mile relay. If you look through the different events, I think Coach Bellizzi was putting him wherever he needed him, to help win the meet. So he would be in sometimes 5-6 events in a given afternoon. He was all-conference team in football for 2 years, both as on offense and on defense. He led the team in the 66th and non-undefeated season, in interceptions and in touchdowns. So he led them in both of those. In that senior year, the team averaged 38 points on offense, and they only gave up 8 points. So quite a dominant team. Over 2,800 yards of offense as a team over only 8 seasons, or over 8 games. And the team had 19 interceptions, half of those which were thanks to Ken Peterson. He was the MVP of that senior year. He had 13 touchdowns. He was the leading receiver, the leading kickoff, and the leading punt returner. And also interceptions. And he led the conference in scoring in that year with 73 points. Right? He had 12 touchdowns and 1 safety, beating his Grafton teammate, the running back, by 1 point. Right? So they really dominated the conference that year. As mentioned, he went on to Whitewater to compete in both the long jump and triple jump, and in relays, competing at the national level multiple times. So again, athletically, he was gifted, and I think it was due in large to who he was as a man. The quote at the bottom of the plaque was from one of his teammates, Jeff Zabulski, and he said, "He approached sport with an earnestness, a passion, and effort." Those were the 3 words used to describe him. And I think they did a nice job summing up his approach to sports, but not just sports, but also to his life. And let me just share a few stories that I think highlight some of those attributes. So first, effort, or hard work. I mean, I think all athletes are aware of the importance of hard work and discipline. Right? You're not gonna have success without those 2 things. And I think it applies to life as well. I think in this day and age, we've already mentioned the advent of the iPad and screens. I have 3 kids that love their screens. And I think, unfortunately, in the age of social media and instant access, hard work and discipline is a dying art form. Not everyone believes that hard work will get you there. I think they feel like you can get whatever you want at the click of a switch, the flip of a finger. And without hard work, true success is not possible. My dad was actually a long jumper, but he had to work at it. In order to be able to put extra time in for jumping, they built a long jump pit in his backyard. And then he would hang a clothesline, so he'd hang a clothesline over the long jump pit. And he'd hang a rag from the clothesline. Because he knew that if he could touch that rag with his head, he would jump further. And he would slowly lift the clothesline. The higher he would jump, the further he would go. And he practiced continuously. He put in the hard work. He put in the effort to become who he was in the long jump. So all that hard work paid off. The next one, passion. I've always appreciated my dad's passion for sports, right? Because I found that same joy competing athletically. There's something about competing that really, it just helps bring the world to a smaller place. You walk out of that court, now the confines of your world are only this big. There's simple rules that you can figure out and you can learn how to win. And I think that can also apply to sports, to life. It doesn't apply to sports, it can apply to life. One of my favorite memories was a few months before he died, we were at school. We were practicing for Olympics Day. I was in grade 6. He was in charge of coaching the long jump, of course. Why not? He was trying to teach me the finer points of the event. Run, jump. Let's practice. And I tried to make my 11-year-old body do the same things that his body was doing. And I couldn't do it. I just didn't have the correct the body coordination to do what he wanted to do. But it was amazing to watch him do it. I loved watching him do it. He would demonstrate, I would try, he would demonstrate. Sadly, he never got the chance to properly teach me how to long jump, but I tried. So in high school, I tried the long jump. My sister and I attended Clinton High School, which is south of here, near Beloit. And I participated in 3 sports. Like my father, basketball, track and field. I chose cross country instead of football. I tried the long jump, but again, just never quite had the required speed or technique to really succeed in long jump. Instead, I found success in distance running, making it all the way to the state cross-country meet. The last one was earnestness. All right, it's kind of a word we don't use too often. All right, but I think it could also be defined as conviction or focus. It's also a critical component to success, and I would argue probably the most important of the 3. And I think this is where my dad had the largest impact. He was often described as quiet and confident. Some would even say arrogant. And I think these attributes reflect his inner focus, the fact that he was able to focus on his goal. And when you focus, the passion and discipline follow. When he was in college, my dad gave his life to Christ, giving him a new focus in his life. In 1980, my father and mother decided to commit their lives to serving as missionaries in West Africa, even though they had 4 small children. The decision required my parents to sell their house, to pack up all their belongings, move to South Carolina for Bible college. Then they moved back to Beloit, where my father did intern pastorship. Then they moved to Switzerland to learn French. And then finally to Africa to begin their mission work. After 5 long years of preparation, they finally arrived in Dakar, Senegal. After being there for 10 months of a planned 3-month stay, my father, who was in excellent health, had just won a race 2 days before that, went out for a run with my brother Nathan. On that run, This never gets easy to say. On that run, doing something that he loved, he had a heart attack and died. His singular focus of following God that singular focus of following God cost him his life. He went to Africa, doing what he knew he needed to do, and ultimately died. It's been 36 years since he died, and it's still a difficult story to tell. I lament not knowing my father better. His absence was hard on us, on my family. It's been difficult. But the life that he lived, the example he left, has left a permanent impression on me, on my family, and I think on many others that knew him. I think that quote, I would rephrase it slightly. I think not only did he approach sports, but he approached life with an earnestness, a passion, and an effort. He lived his life by example, and his love for sports and his dedication to God were evident by the decisions and choices that he made. So, in closing, I just want to thank you again for allowing us to participate in this ceremony. It's been a great opportunity to relive some of the old stories, to read our newspaper articles, to see pictures like this, to celebrate his life. For those that did not know him, hopefully this gave you a glimpse of who he was as an athlete here at Grafton, and he was as a man. For those who did know him, please, I would love to chat with you. I'd love to hear more of the stories that you have to share. My mom would like to come up and say, to tell one final story about who he was, his life. Thank you very much.
I didn't go to Grafton High School, but when we came back from Africa, I became a teacher because I could be in the same schedule as my children. And I taught chemistry and physics. But in my first year of teaching in a small school in Clinton, they needed a coach to coach track. And I was running at the time, and I said, okay, Steve was a freshman, and so he was already there late at night, so I thought, okay, I can do this. But I learned something very important trying to be a brand new teacher when I began to coach. And when you coach, you can suggest to students things to do, increasing their stride, moving their arms differently. But when the whistle blows, when the gun sounds, it's a student out there on their own. And I loved that relationship with students because you were the encourager, you were the builder, you were the person that came alongside. I think high schoolers tend to not listen to their parents at a certain age, but they will listen to a teacher, and they'll listen to a coach. Oddly enough, I think people outside of the realm of their parents, although I think later on students come to appreciate their parents and the structure they gave them. But at those years, it seems like a coach makes a great deal of difference in a student's life. And I guess as a teacher, I should also be a coach. I give them information, but ultimately, what they do with that information is their responsibility. I'm there to encourage. I'm there to instruct. I'll tell you something about coaching. I appreciate the fact that in this time here, you've honored both athletes and coaches. I think if you were to put down an hourly wage for a coach, for the hours they put in, they're probably the least paid people in the state of Wisconsin. They plan practices, they practice, they ride buses, they prepare equipment. Some of them actually have to learn medical things. They stand in the rain and the snow and the hot weather to encourage kids. Nobody goes in coaching, in my opinion, for the money. Maybe at higher levels they do, but not at the level of junior high, high school, grade school. Coaches are there because they love the sport and they love the kids. And after 10 years of being alone, I did marry someone who coached. He's going to enter his 55th year of coaching football. I don't know, I keep thinking maybe this will be the last year. But he loves the game, and I think you just love that relationship with young people to encourage them to who they are, because you can do so much, but when the bells ring and the whistles blow, they're out there, and they develop into people. So I'm going to tell you one story about Coach Bleasy. I know there's been a lot said about it. I'm grateful that he was honored last year. He was Ken's coach for all 3 sports. But one day in basketball, he lost his temper, and Coach Bleasy got him aside and firmly said, "You leave that practice and don't you come back unless you can control your temper." Well, Ken didn't leave the team, so he came back. He wasn't a star in basketball, but all the people that he knew well, they were a small town, he played with the guys, he wanted to be a part of that team. I can tell you, in the years I was married to him, I do not remember a time he lost his temper. And another story was when he was interning as a pastor, and we were leaving the church, and someone came up and made a very negative comment to him. And I looked at him and said, "Well, what are you going to do about that?" And he said, "I'm going to forget he ever said it." I do not remember the person who made the comment. I do not remember the criticism. I remember the very place I stood. But what I remember is that when he said, "I'm going to forget they ever said it," he had already forgotten. I don't don't know if a coach who tells you you can't lose your temper on the basketball court is enough for you to change what you do with your emotion because you want so badly to be on that team. But I wish I could ask him today, did Coach Busey's, what he said to you, what did it do inside of you that made you not ever seem to have a time when you lost your temper? And was able to say to a difficult situation, I'm gonna forget they ever said it. So I'm grateful for, I think there's a verse in the Bible that says, and Jesus Christ grew in wisdom and stature in favor with God and man. The 4 ways we grow. We grow physically. We grow intellectually. And we put kids in school. We grow spiritually. And we grow socially. Now, there's 2 areas that athletics produces in that. One is, I think it gives students a time to use their bodies and develop from grade school all the way through high school into college. But teamwork and that idea to get along socially, to support each other in your differences, athletics goes a long way in producing that in individuals. I hate to think what our country would be like without athletics or coaches, and a lot of coaches in the younger levels, they even volunteer their time. Again, it's not a high-paying job necessarily, but I think it's one that has changed our country, developed, and whether it's the athlete who becomes excellent or the team that wins the state tournament, every single one of those kids that's in athletics and every single one of those teams that are working in their communities are making a difference in their lives. So I want to personally thank you for what you've done. It has created in me the desire to take all that I know. Steve was 11 when he lost his father, Joy was 9. They didn't know him as an adult. But because of this event, I started pulling out all the things he wrote, all the things he did, to not just give them a flat picture of their father, but to take his words and make them 3-dimensional for them. Anyway, and for that, I'm deeply grateful. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to welcome up the Peterson family to present them on behalf of Grafton High School with their plaque that will hang in our commons in Ken's honor. This concludes the speaking portion of our event. For those who are part of an inductee's predetermined party, we will transition to the GHS Commons area for a plaque unveiling and luncheon. For all others who have attended today, we thank you so much for joining us in celebrating the legacy of GHS athletics. Please visit the Grafton High School athletic website if you wish to nominate a former Blackhawk for consideration in future years. Has been said multiple times today, once a Blackhawk, always a Blackhawk.